this special thing called, what was the name of it? Compact block filters. Is that what it uses? But anyway, it allows you to essentially connect to the Bitcoin network without running a Bitcoin node. Same thing with Core Lightning. They have this cool plugin called Sauron that essentially allows Core Lightning to run off the Blockstream API. So you can use that to spin up a Lightning node in Core Lightning. And then I also made a workbench just for Bitcoin Core. Same pattern. So which one should we use? Should we go for Neutrino or Sauron? I kind of like Core Lightning better for a demonstration. But I'll put it up to a vote. Show of hands, should we go with LND?
Core Lightning.
Core Lightning? Core Lightning it is. Okay. So I have this. Here we go. Here's Sauron. And let me, this is going to be hard to put this on the projector and work on this at the same time. So let me see if I can change my display settings. 1 second. Go away. Okay. Hopefully this doesn't blow up anything you're doing, Car. I'm about to turn on mirror mode.
Yeah, I see that.
You still see it? Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right. So this is a workbench pattern for Sauron, which is Core Lightning running the Sauron plugin. But typically with like a Docker project, you will have all the stuff that you need. Typically, like it's a Docker project is just bolted on to another project. So you'll have, like if you go to the Core Lightning GitHub, they'll have their whole project there, and then they'll have some Docker files sprinkled here and there, so you can set up an environment for building, set up an environment for testing. LND does Docker a little better. They have like a separate area in their repository where they help you set up a Docker environment to do testing with LND and to kind of set up like a demo. This is essentially like we're running a Docker environment, and we're configuring a Docker environment that we can work inside of. So for this, we're just going to go over what our workbench contains. Also, is everybody able to clone this from GitHub? You having issues?
Usually Docker containers are meant to isolate the project. How does this project interact with the outside environment? Or is it just a demo?
So you still have all the benefits of Docker, where this container is isolated from your machine. But the cool thing about doing something like this is that you can break past the one process limitation inside of a Docker container and actually build an entire environment inside of a Docker container, which I like because sometimes when you have, there's two ways to approach it. You can either approach it where you have this project that has multiple Docker containers, and you have to sort of like spin up all of these Docker containers on your machine, and they're all running in isolated processes. And so for production, maybe that makes more sense. But if you're doing development, it really sucks to have to jump from one container to the other and have to reboot this container and then maybe bring everything down and reorchestrate everything again, especially projects that like require you to spin up multiple Docker containers. Like every time you change one thing in one container, you have to rebuild everything. It's kind of annoying. And so it's like easier if you just have one container and your whole environment is in that one container for development. Not advocating this for production, but for development, it's really fun. It feels frictionless. So
So what you're saying is that this demo is completely isolated from any outside processes.
yeah, you still have the benefits of running everything inside of a Docker container. So it's isolated from your machine. I mean, we're going to open some ports. So we have this port, which is going to be for lightning peering. And we are also going to be using ngrok to connect to our node. So it does have some connection to the outside world. Has anybody had any issues downloading this from GitHub, or are we all good?
Where are we cloning it? Or what is the command to clone it?
Oh, okay. So let me show you that really quick. So if I were to just create like a y'all can see that, right? So if you go to the project,
This is not in the same terminal window that we were using for the Hello World.
you could use the same terminal.
You'll just have to control control C out of the Docker process.
Okay.
Yeah, so the if you go to the workbench project on GitHub, what I typically do is I'll go to code, and they'll give you this just command you can copy. You probably want to do HTTPS.
And then just like git clone, right?
Yeah, and then just git clone. Clone, and then boom. Just like that. Okay, so we're going to dive into it. So we have our build folder where I have some Docker files that, these are Docker files that are used for building things. So this is like a common pattern that you'll see in other projects is when you have to compile something from source, you have to install a lot of packages that you would normally install on your machine, and these packages can just crap stuff all over your machine and be difficult to install. So one cool thing to use Docker for is essentially create these little environments where you have everything you need to compile a project from source. You get the compiled binary, you take the compiled binary, and then you just dispose of the container. And then you're done. Like all the stuff that you had to download, all the stuff, the additional packages and tooling that you had to install, like all of that is just gone from your machine. And if you ever have to go back and compile another version of something, you essentially have this image of what is the build environment for a project. So Docker containers are really useful for building things from source. And in the build folder for this workbench, for Sauron, it's essentially what we use it for. We have a Docker file for building core lightning from source. So this will build core lightning from source, and we can kind of walk through this real quick.